All right, you're good to go.
All right, hello, everyone. Today's Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. It's 6:30 p.m. and we have quorum. So we'll go to item 1 of the planning board agenda and call the planning board meeting to order. Before we do that, I'll read in the governor's order. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the provisions of the open meeting law pursuant to the governor's approval of a supplemental budget bill. Temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law have been extended to March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location, and to provide adequate and alternative access to remote meetings. The language of the extension does not make any substantive changes to the open meeting law, other than extending the expiration of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025. Members of the public are encouraged to participate remotely and shall address the questions with the chair of the board. Well, this evening we have Mr. O'Brien as the host. The following members are participating from the Bridgewater Planning Board remotely this evening. I'm Patrick Driscoll, the chair. Mr. Michael McDonald, the vice chair. Ms. Astrid Rojas. Let's see. And Mr. Edward Ted Haley.
MJ's here as well.
Right, we have an alternate member, Ms. MJ Spagone, this evening. During the meeting, all votes will be taken as roll calls, and the following Bridgewater Town staff are also with us this evening. Mr. Robert Rulli, our Community Economic Development Director, Mr. Shane O'Brien, the Town Planner, Mr. Greg Tansey, the Town Engineer, and Mr. Solari, the Building Commissioner. At this time, everyone's mics are muted. If the board's mics are unmuted, the board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting as items appear on the agenda. The project representatives' mics will be unmuted. If the project is a public hearing and allows for public comment, we ask that you use your chat feature to ask a question by listing your name, your address, and your question. The chair or the host will recognize the questions in order. You can also use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu and be unmuted when the chair or the host recognize you. Again, please state your name and address before asking any questions. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. So we do have an agenda with eight different items before us this evening. I'm going to ask the board if somebody could make a motion, just because we do have members of the public here this evening, and we do have to continue a few items. If somebody would make a motion to take item 3 out of order, which is 43R Central Square, map 34, lot 55. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So by Mr. McDonald, do we have a second?
I can second that.
By Ms. Rojas, any discussion? So Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Ms. Pagon?
Yes.
Ms. Pagon? Okay. All right, so this item, there was a, we're not going to open this public hearing. There was an advertising error on this item. So this hearing will have to be re-advertised. Our next meeting date is 12/4, December 4th.
Oh, Pat, can I correct you on that?
Yeah.
There wasn't an issue with the advertisement. There was an issue with people being notified.
Notification, I'm sorry.
Correct. So I just wanted to fix that because it was properly noticed for today's date.
All right, there was a notification error. I apologize. This does have a site plan and a couple of special permits potentially involved in it, so we need at least 4 people here. What is the board's availability for 12/4?
Should be no issue on my end.
Ms. Pagon, Mr. Haley, Ms. Rojas?
No issue on my end either, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, so if everybody's available, do we have a motion to continue the public hearing for 43R Central Square to December 4th?
Motion to continue.
So by Ms. Pagon, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I
Do we have
can
a second?
second that.
By Ms. Rojas? Any discussion? I'll start with Ms. Rojas,
Yes,
Ms. Pagan,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
and Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So anybody here for 43R Central Square, that is continued until 12/4. And I believe new notifications will go out, but the advertisement will not be redone. Is that correct?
That is
Shane?
correct. There will be, the applicant will be resending out letters to, abutters of 300 square feet.
All right, thank you very much. So do we have a motion to take item 4 out of order?
Motion to take out of order?
So by Ms. Pagan, do we have a second?
I can second that.
By Ms. Rojas. So this is a request for a minor change of subdivisions, a minor change of a subdivision pursuant to our subdivision rules and regulations, section, looks like B7, or is it 8.7, Shane?
Pat,
Okay.
you have to do a roll call for that last, motion and second. And also you didn't vote on,
No, time out. I have a motion and a second, correct? And now we're discussing it.
I know, but you did roll for the 43 rear central square. So I just wanted to,
Right, we did the roll already, right?
no, for this one?
No. I asked him to take item 4 out of order, and now we're discussing it.
Okay,
And then we'll do the roll.
sure.
What's the topic?
So this is in regards to the minor subdivision change, rules and regulations 8.7. So we did receive a, oh, I see what you're saying, Shane. I see what you're saying. Before I can discuss it, I guess.
That and you didn't vote on the last continuance too.
Okay, I get you. All right, I apologize. So we continued, we voted to take item 3 out of order. We didn't vote to have that meeting on 12/4. So can I go back to item 3, 43R and take the roll call vote for that?
No, you voted both.
All right.
So
We can-
three's done. For this one, you gotta have a
4,
vote
I
to
got
take it out of order.
All right,
then-
all right, so Ms. Pagan made the motion to take item 4 out of order. Ms. Rojas seconded it.
Correct.
I'll take the roll. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Pagan?
Yes.
Ms. Rojas?
Yes,
Mr. Haley?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, so item 4 is a request for a minor change of a subdivision to the Bridgewater subdivision rules and regulations. And this looks like it's under B.7. So we received a request, I believe, today, Mr. O'Brien, is that correct? Asking this to be pushed to the 12/4 meeting as well from the applicant?
That is correct.
So do we have a motion to move this item to the 12/4 agenda?
Motion to move to 12/4?
Ms.
Second.
Pagan, do a second by Mr. Haley? I'll take the roll. Mr. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Pagan?
Yes.
Ms. Rojas?
yes,
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Sorry, there's a lot of votes for 2 items. All right, so item 3 and item 4. are
You didn't
both-
vote.
Oh, I'm a yes. Okay, thank you. So item 3 and item 4 are continued to the 12/4 meeting. Anybody here for those are on the 12th, the December 4th meeting? All right, going back to our regular agenda. Item 2, I'll open this public hearing. This is for 0 Bedford Street. This is map 75, lot 37. This is a site plan review under section 10.6. From 2024 Bedford Street Condo Trust to construct 2 commercial contractor bays. The building's around 1.67 acres with associated parking and drainage. This public hearing was opened at our last meeting. We had some discussion about it, and this is a continuation. So at this point, I would open it up to the applicant to make any additional presentation items that they might want to make.
Good
Mr.
evening,
Grady?
Mr. Chair. Yep, Kevin Grady, representing the applicant. My video doesn't seem to be working at the moment, but I can present without you guys seeing my face, I guess. And now my computer is thinking for a minute. As you indicated, we met 2 weeks ago and discussed the project. We discussed the general site layout, parking, access drive, stormwater, lighting, dumpster locations, etc. The board had a handful of items they wanted us to reconsider. Trying to share my screen here, but it is locking up.
Mr. Grady, just while you're going on, I should mention that we do have 5 members here this evening, but only 3 are participating in this hearing, correct, Shane?
That is
Mhm.
correct.
So it's myself, it's Mr. McDonald and Mr. Haley, correct?
Correct.
Because Ms. Rojas and Ms. Pagon were not at the last meeting.
Okay,
They're not participating, so so.
we need
should-
a unanimous.
We should disclose that because you're gonna need a unanimous vote.
Correct.
yes.
Okay,
And I apologize, I didn't say that at the beginning, so.
that's okay. I appreciate it. My Zoom here is still kind of bogging down for some reason, so I'm unable to share the screen at the moment. It's looks like it's thinking. Anyway, I'll try to describe it without you guys seeing the plan, unless Shane can post the plan for me.
Let me see what I can do. Let me see if I
Okay.
can fix if there's any issues on my end. All right. Yeah, if you want to try sharing now.
It's now asking me if I want to close the program or wait for the program to respond. So
All right, from a PDF or a Zoom standpoint.
Zoom.
All right.
So I might get knocked out.
If you want to
Uh,
just sign back in, we could.
Do you want to give me 2 minutes to try and log back in?
Yeah, that's fine.
No, go ahead.
All right, thanks.
So Pat, I just put a reminder in the chat as well, for anyone that's there, that 43 Rear Central Square and Bridgewater Preserve have been continued to the December 4, 2024 planning board meeting. So that's in the chat in case if anyone's here for that project.
Okay, thank you. Shane, I
Alright,
just wanna
that-
be-
that looks better.
I have a print off of the, I'm in the folder for the. I have the 11-18 plans right in front of me here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep,
Yep,
we can
we
hear you.
Okay, great. Did you give me shareability, Shane?
Let me check.
Damn, I clicked it and it's
All right, you should be able to share now.
yeah, I'm bogging down again.
Shane, I have it up on my screen. You want me to just share it? I have it.
Yeah, if you
right-
want to, yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody. I haven't had this problem before. My computer's been a little clunky today, a lot of stuff open.
You know what? I was late because my Zoom updated to a new version. So let's see. All right, so. You guys see that?
Yep.
Mr. Grady? can you see that?
Yeah, I cannot, but I have PDF I can see on my end. So I'll just go through, I just have probably six or eight items to discuss with the board. 6 of them were brought up at the last meeting with the board. I think the main one was revolved around parking, and that we were utilizing a parking regulation from another town because you didn't have specifically contractor base. However, after discussion with the board and Shane, we found a alternative to using specifically contractor base, and also based on the board's recommendation, we added a few alternative uses in there, allowed uses, so we could get a mix of uses in there, which would definitely be beneficial to the applicant owner for potential leasing. Instead of just having one possible business, we added a few others. So we included indoor entertainment and recreation facilities, including health clubs, theater, sports arena. As the applicant's partner indicated, they had, baseball hitting interest. They've been talking to a few people about this. So they designated 3 of the units, F, G, and H specifically, 3,600 square feet, which requires 18 spaces. They also proposed professional offices for a few of the units. Required parking for the 1,800 square foot professional offices results in 3 spaces. Neighborhood retail, they proposed units C, D, and E that required 14 spaces, and then warehouse units B, J, and I, which don't require any parking spaces. The result is that the total requirement is 34, and we're proposing 35 spaces. Another item that was brought up was the accessible spaces. We now have 2 accessible spaces, one for each building, located between the 2 units. So they have 1 shared aisle, but we are proposing 2 spaces. The next item that was brought up was the landscaping of
Mr.
the.
Grady,
Sure.
can I just ask you a question while you're on
Yep.
that?
Absolutely.
So looking at this plan now, there's 30 something space, 33 spaces, I think I counted roughly. Is that right?
I have 35.
And they were at 20 in the previous,
Yeah,
Okay.
something in that range, yes.
they were like 22, I think.
I'd have to open the previous plan, which I certainly can.
But that's all right. I think it was 22
Okay.
or 21.
Yep.
But so parking increased almost 50%.
I think we lost Kevin.
Ooh.
Yeah, we'll see if we can, they'll join the meeting. Let me see. Let me bring up look at the old plan, Pat, and I can confirm the amount of parking.
I think
Alright.
it was 22. I looked at it, I looked at it a couple of days ago.
Okay,
I mean, if you can find it, great.
yeah, just to confirm, let me. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. They provided 22 spaces in the last plan.
Any sign of them? No.
No, apologies on the delay, folks. Nope, there he is.
I'm back.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
If this was in person, I wouldn't have been talking to myself for the last 5 minutes.
We need.
I don't think.
No.
Where did I cut out?
we
were
confirmed
told-
that the amount of parking spaces essentially doubled. It went from 22 to what you currently have on your screen.
Which is, hold on.
Yeah, so that was one of my questions I was asking. The other question I have is with this parking, how much did the impervious area increase by?
Not significantly. I don't have the exact area. I could certainly calculate it, but
Well,
essentially what,
I guess my question is did that trip new stormwater calculations?
yes, which we analyzed and submitted.
And Greg, you had an opportunity to revisit the new stormwater calculations based on the increase in parking?
I did.
And that was the comment that you made to us in your
Yes,
last review? It was
Correct.
based off the 35, not the 22, correct?
correct.
Yeah, so that front parking bank where we have 8 parking spaces, we had parallel parking there. Just by adding about 4 or 5 feet of pavement and rotating those spaces 90 degrees, we gained like 5 or 6 spaces right in that location. And then in the rear where we had that storage area, it's kind of lost space where we were talking about, well, where we had a discussion that it looked like storage area. That was lost space. So we captured some of that. And I believe we had modeled that as gravel already. So it had an 86% runoff. And then changing it to pavement did not increase it by a significant amount. It's not like it was grass or woods. So we got some more parking and more flexibility for potential tenants, based on the conversations with the board where we talked about potential for a bakery or, sports training, et cetera. So following the meeting, we had internal discussions and we thought it was a good idea to maybe just tweak that up a little bit to help. But the intention really is contractor base, and in a perfect world, they grow their business and they don't have to share it, but to lease it out and make some money would be, obviously an asset to the building. Let's see. So we added those parking spaces. We eliminated the gravel area in the back where, we had discussed that it looked like storage. We eliminated that. We added some trees. We look at the
What sheet was that?
landscape sheet, which is,
I have 12 sheets in front of me. That should be.
oops, I just had it. Sheet 7. There you go. So on the left figure, left viewport there, that's really the main landscape sheet. So in the back, we planted that parking area behind the buildings. If you I don't know if my notes, if you scroll up a little bit. Yeah, right in there. So we added some shade trees around that parking bank, and we are planting the remainder with New England Conservation wildlife mix. So that'll turn into woods eventually, but initially it'll be grasses, flowers, etc. And we've got New England Conservation mix along the edges everywhere between the woods and the parking lot developed area. So we have a lot more shade trees in the back there now. One of the other items we added is we have an enclosure now on the back of that rear building. So that whole area between the parking, the 5-space parking lot, yep, and the building has 6-foot-high privacy fenced enclosure. The dumpster's proposed to be in there. Any outdoor storage would be screened from public view and within that penned area. So there's no need for storing anything in the back or parking, as was discussed in the rear. They have a convenient place to store materials. As I said, we added, so we have 2 handicap spaces now. Mr. Tanzi suggested adding a perforated pipe to the drainage system between the, basically at the outlet, to try to gain a little bit more infiltration from the
What sheet is that on?
sheet 5.
So just while we're talking about that, we did receive a public comment on the drainage.
Sure.
And that's one of my questions about the increase in impervious area. So you were saying that the pipe now between the
Yes, that manhole and the flared end.
and the grates, that's all perforated now?
Correct, and encased in crushed stone.
So
So
can
go ahead.
you just, and I know Mr. Tanzi had talked about that at the last meeting. I think the concern is that the neighbor already has a flooding basin because of the conditions that exist there. What size storm did you say this was designed for, and how often should water flow out of that?
So I was going to get to the neighbors.
Yeah, go ahead. You just mentioned the perforated pipe, so I just jumped in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So that whole length of pipe is perforated. It follows the entire drainage system train that attenuates the runoff. The main standard we're talking about in this instance is peak flows. State stormwater regulations require that we can't increase the peak rate of runoff from the developed site, to down gradient sites. We've analyzed, so we're proposing catch basins to capture the stormwater, and that's routed to a subsurface infiltration chamber system. It's a big vaulted chamber system with 4x4 galleys. Thank you. So that grid of chambers has significant storage volume. The soils in this area are also very well drained. So water goes into the catch basin, through those manholes, and then through an oil and grit separator. So that's the pre-treatment that takes the sediment, oil, grit, everything that comes off of the parking lot gets captured in the catch basins and oil grit separator. Then it gets infiltrated into that, through the subsurface drainage system. Anything that, and then it overflows to the rear of the property at a rate that is less than the pre-development rate. So we analyzed how much water is flowing off the site based on existing site coverages, which is the standard procedure under the state stormwater regulations. And we came up with peak rates for the 2, 10, 25, and 100 years. And our math and our analysis shows that we're not increasing the rate. On top of that, we've added this perforated pipe to try to infiltrate more water instead of discharging it. It's pretty good sized pipe. It's got a lot of stone around it. It's 117 feet of 12-inch perforated pipe. So you get a small storm that's flowing out of there. It's all perforated. That's probably going to mostly flow into the ground. Larger storms, it will be more conveyance. As far as the issue with the drainage basin in the rear, let me just find the correct sheet here so I can direct you. Bear with me for a sec. Okay, sheet 3.
Sheet
So
3.
yeah, that's the sheet 2. There is the existing condition. So we analyzed the runoff from, for the existing condition site coverages. We looked at the contouring and where the water runs currently, where it discharges, and then we determine how much and what rate the stormwater is exiting the property and what locations. And then in the post-development, we do the same thing and we compare them. If you could change to sheet 3 for me. One of the items that came up in the last meeting was, the neighbors had, voiced concerns with their detention basin not functioning. Scroll up just a little, scroll the other way just a little bit. Okay. So as you know, you guys have driven by this site. It was used as some sort of landscape, wood stump processing, materials processing yard. Those piles everywhere. When I first went out there was piles all along the rear lot line. My client, when he bought this, wound up pulling a lot of that mess out of there to try and clean up the site before, coming to the board, because it's going to be an obvious concern. He thought he had graded it enough that he got down to existing topography. What we are showing on that right viewport, we're proposing to cut a swale. You can see the dark dash lines, contour 65 that's there. When we topoed that, there was still a up higher. If you go up and to the left, a little further.
It's 64.3 right there, right?
Yeah, on the lot behind it.
65 right here?
Yeah, so see the dash 65s?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's basically a berm. It's hard to see when you're out there, but that is it's like a peninsula. See how it cuts right across that lot? It's certain, and if you go in the other direction, if you follow that line in the other direction, yeah, keep going. Yep, keep going. And see how it doubles back on itself? That's a peninsula. That's an elevated area. So if you, in the detention basin, as you said, you saw a 63.8 at the outlet. Obviously, if we have a 65 there, the water can't escape and get out of there. Historically, there's a low point to the northeast land-wise. So basically what we are proposing to do is cut a swale across the rear of the property to restore that historic hydraulic connection to the down gradient property. Whoever designed that detention basin gave it an outlet that had a positive flow downhill. The only location, there's only two locations it could have been. To the right wetland, but I don't think it went that way because there's an existing tree line and elevations and berms and whatnot that are higher than that outlet. So the only place it could have gone is to that northeast corner. And what we're proposing to do is reestablish that historic hydraulic connection. And in our opinion,
Do you have that shown on a sheet?
yeah, it's, you guys are showing it right there. See the 64 contour we have there?
Right here, right. So these lines right here.
Yep. That
So
is the,
that's going to be the swale. So if it overflows, it'll flow right back through here.
you got it. So it won't. So right now, the way the contours are, it holds water up to elevation 65, which would potentially go in their parking lot and over the basin.
You have a there is an on 620 Bedford Street. There is an outlet on that detention basin in that area.
It's uphill of that detention basin. So that detention basin certainly isn't the perfect scenario either. It's it definitely floods and holds water to elevation almost 64 before anything flows out of it. It relies on infiltration below that elevation only. There's no outlet for it. So it has to wait for the water to percolate into the ground. Outlet control is a much better way to do that, but they didn't have that capability because they didn't own the land behind them, I'm guessing.
So the elevation around that detention pond is 65. There's 65 in the middle line. So it's like a little berm around that detention pond.
Yes, and then it's down to, we could only get into it, to get one shot. It looks like it about 62.4. It was full every time we went over there. We were surveying this in the winter, 6 months ago.
So now if it overflows, it'll overflow out that swale that you're proposing across the land instead of into the parking lot.
Correct. Exactly right. We don't think that's an increase in flow. I think we're just reestablishing what the previous owner had blocked with their, and as indicated by the abutters in the last meeting.
Have the piles been moved from that location yet out back?
Yeah, the piles are gone. As I said, it's hard to see. It's pretty nuanced that the outlet is at 63.8 and there's a little peninsula that kind of shows up at 65. That's 1.5 feet over 60, 70 feet, and it's covered with grass and shrubs, and it grew back pretty quickly.
So Greg, based on the abutters' concerns and our discussion last meeting, do you feel that this swale and the perforated pipe would mitigate any potential issues?
Yeah, it'll mitigate it. The only concern that I had stated in my last round of comments is this swale will take water and it will put it onto the abutter to the east, which is the one of the lots of the Hampton Estates subdivision. I don't know if water used to flow onto that low area on the abutter to the east, which is a lot on that Hampton Woods Hampton Road Estates. But any water that does go through that swale will eventually, in a very short distance, wind up into a wetland. I mean, I don't believe it will cause a problem. The only concern that I have is strictly from a regulatory standpoint. Um, the only evidence that came before me and the board was that there's an existing condition with that peninsula that creates um, a divide, a hydrograph divide that sheds water towards the basin on 620, and then on the other side, on the easterly side of the peninsula, it sheds water off into the woods to the subdivision. Again, this is, strictly a regulatory situation. I don't know how much water it'll send because it wasn't modeled. So it's difficult for me to say, exactly, an exact number. It used to be this, and now it's going to be, less or the same. Um, you know, so I mean, so that's where I was coming from with my comments.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay, can I follow up that question?
Sure, Mr. McDonald.
Mr. Tanzi, just to be blunt, drainage is not my expertise, so I'm just relying on your professional expertise here. With the current proposed drainage on this project, in your opinion, would this be an improvement or a detriment to the surrounding areas?
Well, it would definitely be an improvement to 620 and to the applicant. It will have some impact to the abutter to the east. I think it would be a small impact. It will travel the water discharging from the proposed swale that we're looking at now will run a short distance over wetlands through what appears to be a wooded area. I mean, a short distance over overland area, and then it will go into a wetland. So I don't think the impact to that subdivision is going to be noticeable. I think it'll be negligent. I think it will increase as a result of the of the proposed condition. I don't think there'll be consequence to it. The only consequence that I see is just from a regulatory standpoint, a pre and post situation. I can't tell you what those exact numbers are because it wasn't modeled, but I think it would be very small. I think it would help the applicant in 620, but it will put a little bit more water than is currently going out onto the abutter to the east.
Thank you
If we
very
were to-
much, Mr. Tanzi.
If we were to reanalyze this, I think we would go back in time to when this was designed. And between that time and today, there was somebody using this property who filled it with piles of material that blocked that natural hydraulic connection. That's the only place it could go, is in that direction because of the elevations. And we're not proposing to put any impervious coverage or increase to increase the runoff in this area. That detention basin has been there for a long period of time and has been discharging. The only reason we could look at it and say that it might be an increase is because we took a snapshot in time on that day after those piles were removed, and there was this peninsula there. I don't think it has always been there. I think the lot was regraded and reshaped since the original analyzing of and design of this detention basin. So I don't think we are increasing runoff relative to how the detention basin was approved and where that runoff historically went. The only place it can go is toward that wetland to the northeast in that 64 contour. We went out and located those wetlands, and we were trying to figure out if, water did flow in that direction or not, because the site is really flat because somebody's been working it over. And we eventually figured out that everything does go in that direction. And I was surprised it didn't go to the east to that other wetland. I thought those elevations those piles between the detention basin and that wetland might have been man-made, but there's such large trees over there that I don't think it really ever went that way. I think those trees have always been there, and the water just goes off to the northeast. I took a good long look at this, when we were out on site doing test holes and whatnot, over the last 6 months.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Sure, Mr.
for
Lieutenant.
the chair, ask Mr. Grady a quick question.
Sure.
Mr. Grady, the detention basin on 620, does it have any type of weir or overflow structures to the east that you have identified?
No, I think it just tops the basin in that location.
Because it looks like there's a 64 existing contour that kind of loops around where you're tying your 64 swale contour into, right in the north, right up there. See the spot grade? That's a 63.
63.7. Sure.
Yeah, up on the in the parcel to the east,
Yes.
and then going down towards the basin. Bring it down towards the basin. Yeah, a little bit more, and it stops. You see that spot grade right there?
Yep. 63.8.
Yeah, it almost looks like they had a spillway of some sort, that they were, the basin was designed. I couldn't find any real outlet to it. There's an inlet from the catch basin, if I'm not mistaken, and then it was just designed to infiltrate and receive overland flow from the parking lot, the gravel area adjacent to it.
Agreed.
Okay. So typically an infiltration basin would typically have some type of a emergency spillway
Yes.
associated with it. And what I'm wondering is where that cursor is now, is that a remnant of a spillway that was intended to spill water and then send it to the wetland to the east?
That's what it appears to be, because there's no other direction for it to go. It can't go back toward Bedford Street. I think this system was probably poorly designed, and it relies on infiltration, and the drainage basin is old. It probably hasn't really been maintained, so it doesn't have the infiltration capacity that it once did. So it tends to overflow. And it's a flat site. It's so it fills up before it overflows. There's no place for it to go, unless there's some sort of plugged pipe that I have not been able to see. And you know how difficult that can be.
Yeah,
and I think that's up to them to maintain it. And I don't know of any easements across our property.
Yeah, I didn't see any outlet pipe either, which leads me to believe this is strictly an infiltration basin. And, even back in the day, infiltration basins would typically have some type of a emergency spillway, a weir, something like that.
Yeah, some sort of outlet control too, but
yeah,
it doesn't appear that that's how this was designed.
What probably happened was, you see the mature trees along the wetland line.
Yes.
And and you've got that steep bank afterwards. This site may have been, raised, lowered in grade. Maybe it has good sandy material in it. Perhaps some gravel was mined out of it and it was leveled. It might have been, and then built upon. Kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with Gabriel's property on the other side of Bedford Street, not too far away, but it was graded down flat. There was a lot of material that came out of there. And back in the day, that's what they did.
Sure.
They would, they would grade the site in such a way that they could, make some money on gravel. And that may have been what happened here. So who knows where that water went? And it may have gone to the east,
I think they essentially ran out of room, or they wouldn't have tucked it in that back right corner. They just didn't own that other land, so they couldn't put a pipe in or anything. That's the only point it could go. The detention basin is in that back right corner, right? So that's why it's there.
So to Mr. Grady and Mr. Tanzi, right, between proposed elevation 64 and 65, that's a test pit, I assume?
Correct.
What are the materials like that?
That was a mix well, eventually you get to sand, but there is some fill in there.
So how is there going to be a good hydraulic connection in that swale so that not only will water, the idea is water will infiltrate in that swale as well, correct?
Yes, but it's more conveyance really, so that it can't, basically the level of the detention pond can't get above elevation 64, say, and start to head toward the existing building number 620. So we don't want to flood the parking lot. We want to, have a escape route for that water that doesn't go back towards Bedford Street. And I think that should do it. And we could do some crushed stone or whatever and get some infiltration. But the property that is under my client's control, he can only control it to 63.7. He doesn't have any hydraulic elevation to work with either.
Right, yeah, right.
Yep. So it's going to, that's the low point. That's the hydraulic outlet. You might get a little bit ahead above that. That's why I said it could get up to elevation 64. I don't see it get any higher than that before it starts to really head off site toward that wetland that's just off the screen. It's basically where that north arrow is.
So Greg,
little further.
the point you brought up about the Hampton Estates, that lot where it's right around 63.7. Do you think what Mr. Grady suggested, the crushed stone on the bottom of the swale, would be helpful?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you put like line it with crushed stone, wrap it in filter fabric, you're going to get some additional infiltration as well as conveyance.
Yeah,
I don't know what the groundwater table out there is, but I would imagine it's probably at least 4 feet down, if not more. Yeah, maybe Mr. Grady can elaborate on that.
Yep, looking for my test holes now. That's test hole 4. I knew I should have printed a paper plan. Flipping through these is usually put it on the existing condition sheet.
Mr. Tanzi, just so I'm clear, to help protect Hampton, is that a recommendation you're making? Is that the swale be lined with filter fabric and crushed stone? That detail be added?
I would recommend doing that.
I think in the bottom of that swale, if we do a 2 foot wide, 2 foot deep fresh stone trench, something to that effect, then we can get hydraulic connection and we can improve conveyance. Test hole 4, I had weeping water down at 7 feet. So there's room to put a fresh stone trench in there.
Mr. Tanzi?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it would definitely help out the flooding condition that occurs at 620 Bedford Street.
Okay, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Haley, any additional questions on the drainage piece while we're here?
Nothing from me at this time. Thank you.
So,
Beyond my pay grade, no comments.
Mr. Tanzi, just based on the comments we received from the abutter, based on the analysis, based on the perforated pipe, based on the trench they're proposing in the swale, does that satisfy your concerns?
Yeah, it satisfies my concerns with the applicant and and the abutter at 620 Bedford Street.
And you think we're not gonna impact with that trench, we're not gonna impact that new neighborhood we just approved, Hampton Estates, correct?
No, I don't think it'll impact it. You'll get some,
It looks like, I mean, it looks like the low point 63. It looks like it probably cut through. It goes up from there, 64, 65, 60.
right. Right, what it,
Lot is flowing that way anyway off the Hampton site.
yeah, it'll flow to the, on the paper, looking at the paper, it'll flow to the left, which is where a wetland line occurs. You can see it better on another plan. There's a portion of the wetland that's shown. I don't know if it's on the other viewport on this plan or if it was on another plan.
I'm just starting my AutoCAD, so I trying to find it there. Give me a sec. Oh, it's on the existing conditions plan sheet 2. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, so you can see that 64 contour that doubles back on itself. So the swale, you can see the spot grade. The swale goes over that easterly line and then it'll bank to the left. So it's paralleling the lot line and then it goes right down into that wetland. So it's not gonna impact, certainly not the house that's going on that lot. And, you know,
Yeah, we spent some time trying to figure out the hydrology here. I had to go send my guys back out because I was trying to figure out this exact same thing. Once it hits that 64 contour, it drops right down to elevation 59 in the wetland. So you have a lot of elevation, a pretty good elevation drop there, particularly when you compare it to how flat this portion of this property is. So hydraulically, the water is going to go downhill toward that wetland, and it appears there's pretty good storage since there's 6 feet of elevation drop right there.
In between the infiltration on the parking lot and that perforated pipe and the trench and the swale, I mean, there may never be any discharge onto that back out of that trench. Mr. Tanzi, good?
well,
Well, in a
whatever.
frost condition and this, I think this is the best we can do in this situation. The detention pond is not Its design is problematic for, my client, and he is willing to try to help with that. But I think he's limited in what he can do just because of the topography that he's actually in control of.
Yeah, that retention basin is under designed. So any overflow that that a retention basin is experienced will be conveyed and recharged through the bottom of the swale through the crushed stone mat, the 2x2 mat that Mr. Grady was proposing to do. And any additional flow will make its way to the wetland to the east. But I don't see that being a significant discharge, even in a 50 or 100-year storm.
Agreed.
Okay, drainage, any more? So you want to continue on, Mr. Grady?
No, those were really the high points. I left that one to last.
One quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Mr. Tanzi, go ahead.
Mr. Grady, did you provide a detail of that perforated discharge pipe to the flared end section? I don't recall seeing it on the detail sheets.
Yeah, sheet 9.
Sheet 9. Could we just take a quick look at that?
We're on sheet 9, hold on. Let's see. I'm on 10, hold on.
Yeah, is that sheet? That's sheet 9. If you scroll up, you have the November 14 revision. I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. So we actually have a revision today that we sent over. You don't have the updated plan. There was only a couple of minor items that we added, and one of them was this crushed stone trench. We basically encased it in 3/4 to 1.5 inch crushed stone wrapped in filter fabric, and there's a foot of stone around the entire pipe in our details, basically a cross section.
So it's almost, again, 2x2, a foot on either side, foot on top, foot on the bottom.
You got it.
Yeah, I
could try-
can share it. I got the email.
Okay, great,
Alright,
thank you.
I'm
I
gonna
was gonna
step on
try
it.
and share, but I'm afraid to drop off again.
Shane, you can take over, okay?
Oh, just for this part.
Perfect, there it is in the right quarter, right third, halfway up the page.
Sure.
Basically looks like a crushed stone trench next to the gasoline
Okay.
trap
And
catch basin.
in the plan, was it labeled
Yes,
as a perforated and show
yep,
the
on
crushed
sheet,
stone around it?
yep. Sheet 4, sheet 5 is probably sheet 5 is probably the best spot to see it.
Sorry, you got too much stuff on my screen.
That's what I'm running into too, Shane.
It's too much going on.
Alright, so that's added, but we're gonna have to, if we vote to approve it, we'd have to add the crush. You'd have to add the 2x2 trench in the swale as well.
Yeah, it'll pretty much look similar to what we're about to see here. If you scroll up just a little.
Yep.
Shane. Huh, what is that sheet? Oh, there it is. See the dash?
Yeah.
So, see all the pipes have two lines. That one has two lines in the interior and then two dash lines around the perimeter, denoting a perforated crushed stone trench around that pipe. And then it calls out to see the detail on sheet 9.
Okay.
And it's sloped at 0.5%, so it's fairly flat. Water won't be flying down this. It'll have a chance to infiltrate on its journey down the 117-foot long pipe.
All right, can we go, if we're done with this, can we go to the, is everybody satisfied with the drainage discussion before we, and we're gonna open up to the public, but for board questions at this point? Mr. Tansey from the board?
Nothing at this time.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I'm good.
Could you go to the landscape plan, Shane?
Sure.
So one of the things we talked about, so some of that bluestone's gonna be hidden by fencing, right?
Yes,
And then in the front of the building setback, I think when I looked at one of the sheets, about 31 feet. The first 20 feet is grass, so it's only about 10 feet of stone. Is that correct?
all right, hold on one second, just checking it myself here. Correct, yes. Okay.
And then in the back, is that, how high is that retaining wall in the back, just without looking? The height facing that's just, how many feet high is that block wall behind the buildings?
I think we profiled that. I think it's a foot or two max.
Okay. There's no plantings in the crushed stone or anything proposed in the back, correct?
Correct.
And the trees I saw you called out as red maples, correct?
That sounds,
Yeah.
yep, yes.
All right.
Mr. Grady, forgive me, I'm just not familiar with the term. The weed barrier under the crushed stone, is that something similar to like a riprap that goes under the stone or something like that?
Yeah, it's a filter fabric. Water can flow through it to get to the ground, but it prevents the weeds. It holds them back from coming up through the stone.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. Any other board questions at this point? All right, so this is a public hearing. So if there's no other board questions or staff questions or comments at this point, are there any?
Just wanted to know, we did receive that comment letter that I did forward over to the planning board members that Pat has referenced.
Correct, and we asked Mr. Tansey to evaluate that. Mr. Tansey, you do get a copy of the abutters letter, correct, regarding the stormwater? Just their concern about the letter that concerned the drainage basin. Where they've
When did it come in?
I forwarded to you probably
a week ago.
day after the last meeting.
Okay, yeah, I do recall that letter.
All right, so
Yes.
if there's no other board questions at this point, open it up to the public. Just state your name and address for the record before you speak. Is there anybody
Please
that would
raise
like
your
to speak?
virtual hand or let me know. Oh, we have Lauren and Adam Hansen. Their hand raised. Hello.
Hi, how are you? This is Adam Hansen, one of the owners at 620 Bedford Street. Yeah, we think that, the plan as put forward looks pretty good. We would like a copy of the plans just so that we can get them reviewed by our engineers as well. But we appreciate the effort that the neighbors have been put forward.
Yep. And just can I answer through the chair?
Go ahead, Mr.
We do have the plans available online to members of the public. So if you need any assistance in terms of getting those plans, I'm happy to share them.
All right, great. Thank you.
So this is John Higgins, 27 Beninati Farm Road, and I'm also at Bridgewater Fitness. So we looked at two sets of plans. The first one we looked at in detail. What's the difference between that set of plans and then the one that came up with the outflow or the other piping? Were there
Mr.
any other differences between the two
Mr.
plans?
Grady, do you want to just highlight the things that we discussed tonight, the increase in parking and the improvements you made to the drainage?
Yeah, sure. Was that the, well,
No,
if you could
that,
ask,
tonight you showed two different sets
Mr. Higgins
Yeah.
is looking for the difference between the two sets of plans.
that were
Yeah.
shown tonight, yeah.
yeah, so the difference is the detail that we had just looked at with the crushed stone pipe. And some labeling on the water service. That was it. There's been no other changes.
And then the other
Mr.
question.
Higgins,
that
just-
I- oh,
Just
I'm
to be,
sorry.
Mr. Higgins, just so I'm clear. Are you asking about the two versions we looked at tonight? Or the version tonight versus the version 2 weeks ago?
No, the version tonight, because we looked at one set of plans and then all of a sudden, Mr. Tanzi asked for detail on that outflow pipe or whatever, and then we started looking at a different set of plans. So I'm just trying to understand, did we look at the same plan or the same detail throughout the meeting?
So I think everything was the same, and the one thing that Mr. Tanzi had asked for was the plan set that we had didn't have the detail of that pipe with the crushed stone around it, so
Okay.
he provided that to us in an updated plan today, which we all didn't have. So that, obviously, we won't sign off on the plan unless that's on it. And then the one thing we talked about tonight that the board will consider as a potential condition is they offered to add another detail, which is a 2x2 stone wrap trench in the swale to help infiltrate some additional water.
Okay, and then two other follow-up questions. The chamber systems that are being proposed, how do they get cleaned out and who's responsible and who maintains that and who follows up on that? 'Cause it sounds like that's important to the drainage of the water, especially when we have bigger storms.
So the stormwater calculations that we submitted include an operation and maintenance plan. So the owners of the properties are required to inspect their system and maintain them in accordance with the operation and maintenance plan. And it behooves them to do it. Otherwise, they wind up with a system that's not working and they have potential flooding issues on their property.
And then my final question is, there's been talk about the detention pond isn't right or the detention area isn't right. What can we do to make it right? Or what needs to be done? So, because as we said in the last meeting, 3 or 4 times, the water's already come our way. We're adding even more asphalt all the way up to the border or to the landline. And just trying to figure out how we can, everybody says they think, and it is, but if all this water comes down towards Bridgewater Fitness, basically the building becomes untenable.
Mr. Grady?
Yeah, so as we were discussing, the detention basin on 620 Bedford Street, or the infiltration basin, appears to be undersized. It doesn't have an outlet other than at the top of the basin. It appears to rely on infiltration only. And I don't know that it's been maintained. It seems to be overgrown, et cetera. So I think it probably needs some updating on that property. My client is, as I indicated with the board, we only have an elevation difference of a tenth or two to provide hydraulic flow across our property. I think that basin, I'm not familiar with it. I haven't spent years there, but I think that basin has had some issues for a long period of time. And probably doesn't have the infiltrative capacity to handle the parking lot that's running to it now. I'm not sure if I answered your question there or not.
Not really. What can we do to it to make sure it's workable? Because as it sounds like, I mean, there's a good chance there's going to be even more water headed that way.
Yeah, so it likely needs to be excavated and somebody needs to analyze how much water is, well, actually, somebody needs to analyze how much water is coming off your parking lot toward it and figure out if it's sized adequately. My guess is probably not, and it needs to be enlarged, and it's probably full of sediment that's not allowing it to infiltrate as fast as it once did. That may need to be pulled out of there and some new pervious material brought in, so you can get a hydraulic connection to the underlying soils and improve that infiltration. You could make it bigger, and or you could add some overflow to some underground chambers if you need parking, et cetera. There's a lot that you could do. You've got plenty of space, and the soils in the area are good. I think it's just the outlet. It was, I think it was whoever designed it was limited in that and what they could do with outlets based on the confines of the property. And that's probably the scenario there.
And I think, Mr. Higgins, that based on the feedback that the applicant got at the last meeting and the fitness center owners, there has been a swale created in the back to take that flow away from the parking lot to the back of that lot. And there's been a stone trench added to try to prevent any discharges out of the, or to limit the amount of discharge out of the outfall, so.
John, I didn't catch your address.
It's 27 Benanati Farm Road in Bridgewater.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Higgins, you all set? Do you have anything else, or do you,
Yes, all done.
any other members of the public? Okay. Going back to the board, is there anything that staff would like to add at this point? Okay, Mr. Tanzi, you're satisfied with the engineering and the improvements and the additions we discussed this evening?
Yes.
Any board member comments? All right, so this is a public hearing. If there's nothing additional from staff and engineering, issues have been satisfied by the town engineer, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
That's Mr. Haley. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. McDonald? Any discussion on closing the public hearing?
So I do just have one thing, just to kind of go to Mr. Higgins' concerns, just because I barely understand drainage, and I've been doing this for God almost 7 years now. So, Mr. Grady, would it be fair to say that your drainage plan that is on the plan is designed to work around the limitations of the existing basin to
Yes.
mitigate the effect?
Yes, so that existing basin is outside of our control. The grading that was done by the previous owner was probably their issue. We definitely meet the state stormwater regulations to attenuate the improvements that we have done to the property, and we're not and we're not having any impacts to the function of that basin.
So it'd be accurate to say you took the limitations of that basin into account when designing the drainage plan.
Absolutely. We had made additional trips out there. We saw that it had issues, and yes, we took that into account.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's all for me, Mr. Chair.
All right, so we have a second. We have a motion by Mr. Haley and a second by Mr. McDonald to close the public hearing. Is there any other discussion? I'll take the roll, Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay, so the public hearing is closed, so just the deliberation portion, Mr. Haley, Mr. McDonald, thoughts on the project? Anything that we should consider outside of our normal conditions that Mr. O'Brien has proposed to us?
Well, obviously the crushed stone with the pipe should be added as a condition, but I think that was pretty well understood. And
So we need the detail added for the 12-inch pipe with the crushed stone around it to the outfall. That's already been provided, but we just didn't have it. Is that correct, Mr. Grady?
Correct.
Right.
I'm
And
sorry,
then-
I misspoke. I actually meant the in the swale.
Yeah, and then the swale, so a condition, so an additional condition will be the swale will have a 2x2 lined,
Crushed stone trench.
Mr. Tansy, do you want to help us with that condition? What you're looking for there?
Yeah, just a detail on the plan, really, to.
But
to
I mean,
show-
the specifications we talked about, you're satisfied with a 2x2 wrapped trench in down the center line of the swale, is that correct?
Yes, you know, as long as they show it on the plan, so it will be, you know, to ensure that it'll get built and built properly, I'll be fine.
Okay. Anything else that we should consider, Mr. McDonald or Mr. Haley?
Nothing I can think of offhand. Was there any snow storage showed on the plans? I'm not really too worried about it because I believe the site has plenty of adequate space for it anyways, but
Yeah, I mean, there's that
they're just
whole,
gonna push it off to the right-hand side there, I would imagine.
I think there's additional parking and there's
Yeah, that's, I'm not sure if I showed snow storage, but as you indicated, there's plenty of parking, and if we need that parking, we'll have to remove the snow from the site.
We can add a condition regarding snow storage be placed on the endorsed plans.
Yeah, I just know sometimes we look for it, sometimes we don't. So yeah, I really should have.
We gotta think about snow. We just haven't thought about precipitation for a while. I think that's I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does not look like we're showing it. We do have an erosion control plan where we typically show it. Sheet 5. I'm not seeing the outlines.
all right, so we want to add, you know, just discussing this, we want to add the condition of the swale, stone line trench 2x2 with a filter fabric wrap. We want snow storage shown on the plan. Anything else that we can think of?
Nothing for me at this time.
Okay, so do we have a motion on the project? Do we have a motion to approve or deny?
I'll move to approve the project.
And delicious.
I'll second that.
Wait a minute. Mr. McDonald, approve the project with the two conditions we just discussed.
Yes, sir.
Mr. O'Brien?
I think I had 3 conditions. It would be the updated plans with the perforated pipe detail, crushed stone trench, as well as snow storage.
Correct.
I'll amend my motion to the 3 conditions,
Sure. As well as the other conditions provided to you guys.
of course.
Okay, so Mr. McDonald, your motion is to approve the project with the detail for the swale trench, with the detail for the pipe stone trench, and with the detail for the snow storage, correct?
Yes, sir.
Along with the standard conditions that Mr. O'Brien has provided us with, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so motion by Mr. McDonald, do we have a second?
I seconded that.
Mr. Haley? Any discussion?
I'll just say, thanks to Mr. Grady and the applicants. I think they took our feedback seriously and improved the project. So that's always good to see. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Right back at you. Appreciate it.
I would agree, so, all right. So we have a motion and a second, motion by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Haley. I'll take the roll. Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, Mr. Grady.
Thanks for your time, everybody. Have a good night.
You too.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I always budget like a half an hour and it goes an hour and a half. How'd that happen? All right, so back to our agenda. We've covered item 1, we've got item 2, we've covered item 3, item 4. We're at item 5. Actually, why don't I see that Mr. Koska's office has been waiting a while. We have a Form A. Would you guys mind taking item 6 out of order? Would somebody make a motion to take item 6 out of order?
So moved.
By Mr.
Seconded.
McDonald. A second by Mr.
Ed.
Haley. Any discussion? Okay, so Ms. Pagan,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas.
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Oh, yes, okay. So, Mr. DeFrias, are you here to represent 84 Hammond Street, sir?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
You'd like to share your screen and walk us through it?
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chair. My name is Tony DeFrias. I'm assisting Mr. Koska in the presentation of this A&R plan for Hammond Street. So let me just give me 1 second here.
And I learned something by looking at this plan earlier today. I've never heard of an encroachment parcel before.
Yeah, so what you have going on, let me just see if I can. So what you have is in the course of surveying this property, there was encountered that the existing building, which was constructed probably in the early part of the 1900s or somewhere around 1920, actually encroaches on the adjacent parcel over to the west, which is a parcel owned by Mr. Rigi. So the building itself encroaches approximately a foot. And the applicant, Mr. Soderbaum, has entered into an agreement with Mr. Rigi to create a parcel, which is approximately about 37 square feet, which is just under the encroachment of the building. And so what will happen is that parcel will be transferred.
Mr. DeFrias, Mr. Soderbaum's granting it to him or Mr. Origi?
I'm sorry, Mr. Origi is granting to Mr. Soderbaum. So what's happening is Mr. Origi is going to give or sell, whatever the agreement is, that little parcel to Mr. Soderbaum, and it's just a parcel of land that is directly under the building. Mr. Rigi is also granting an access easement to Mr. Soderbaum 10 feet on the west and 5 feet to the north to allow Mr. Soderbaum access to the building if he needs to do maintenance. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There's no change in frontage, there's no change in use. This is just the sake of transferring this piece, and this is the agreement that they've come up with between themselves, and I understand their attorneys.
So what does that, the lot, I think, and I don't have it in front of me, I looked at it earlier, is it parcel 42?
Yes, so
What are those former lot lines? Are you combining lot are you combining lot 44 with lot 43?
No, these lots, you know what, that probably shouldn't even say former lot line, because that lot's supposed to stand on its own, but he owns, Mr. Soderbaum owns all of this property here. So it falls under his ownership.
That's where I was confused earlier. I'm like, I didn't understand what, because there's no new lot line. So the way you're showing it is lot 44 and lot 43 at all one lot now.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, that former lot line and former lot line should not be on the plan.
You want to get us a new plan?
I can get you a new plan to, get that taken off, because that shouldn't be on there. But the intent is that this 37 square foot parcel will go from Origi.
Where's the lot line for lot 44?
May I speak?
The lot line for number 44, I believe, is this one right here. I believe this has 3 parcels, and I think the owner, Mr. Soderbaum, is online. I think if my memory serves me right, there was like 3 parcels of land here. He owns all of them.
I can answer to that if you want.
Sure, just state your name and address for the record, sir.
My name's Daniel T. Soderbaum, 84 Hammond Street. Those lots were all combined earlier this year. It's all one big lot now.
So that's all one lot.
Yes, correct, sir.
There's no structure on lot 44.
There is not.
So everything shown is lot 44 and lot 42. The only structure on it is the existing building 54.
Correct.
So again, what you have is right here is the parcel.
Are you
And
showing,
shows,
Tony, are you showing that lot line change? Or is it just the outside of the building is the lot line?
the outside of the building is a lot line. So where you see the description in this detail, you have a lot that's basically a foot by 38.8 by 0.9 by 38.8, totaling 37 square feet.
Well,
That's the parcel.
we're not creating a parcel, that's being added to lot 43, correct?
Right. You're creating the parcel, and then that's going to be conveyed and combined with land of Mr. Soderbaum.
So why wouldn't the Form A just show the new lot line instead of calling that a parcel?
I think they wanted to designate that here's a specific piece of land that's being purchased or being purchased by Mr. Soderbaum from Mr. Origi for the sake of the description. And he might be able to add more to that because he's been dealing with his attorney and Mr. Origi.
Yeah,
if
I
there's anything he
think,
wants to-
and just not to speak for the applicant, but there's sometimes, Pat, people will label something as a parcel rather than call it, especially a small thing like this, not a buildable lot, because clearly it's not a buildable lot being at 37 square feet.
We're just trying to solve the encroachment problem.
Okay, I guess. Any board questions at this point?
I mean, to me, this seems like a no-brainer, but do we need clearer, like more accurate plans to actually sign off on this would be my question, I suppose, because
Yeah,
it's a bit of a mess.
I'd like to see the plan with the lot lines clearly identified, not, because I don't know what's supposed to stay and not supposed to stay, and
Well, it's what the detail is showing. I mean, it becomes difficult because it's such a small piece.
you're showing two formal lot lines and no new lot, so you're just saying those should just be removed?
Those should be removed. I mean, that can be taken care of.
How were those removed? Was an 81X done?
That was, Dan, can you answer that question?
I guess it went through the building department because they were the same deed for so long, they combined them over time. It wasn't even, the other lot was an unbuildable lot. There was nothing we could do with it. I'm not versed in exactly how it was done, to be honest with you, but that's my understanding, that it was an unbuildable lot. They were deeded both to me, and
I can answer that question for you, Pat.
there we go.
All the lots together do not meet zoning. So there's a residential house on parcels that are owned by the same person, and under state 41A, they automatically combine, even if the lines are there. They all become one lot no matter what.
Is that a house or is that the sportsman's club?
It's a sports club that they transferred with a permit into a residential use. They come in, they got a permit. We gave an occupancy permit. We had electrical, we had fire, and we converted.
I was just looking at that.
Yeah,
I thought it was still the sportsman club. I was looking because
no, it's been turned into a residential use, which is what the area is. Yeah, that's residential D. So it meets the requirements, and that's the biggest concern that I had with talking to Mr. Soderbaum, that one day he might want to put an addition on the house, a 2-car garage or an addition, And the problem is the house is in violation because it's encroaching on another piece of property.
Okay, all right.
So that was kind of some of the concerns I think that they were looking at when we went through this process, if I'm correct.
So, Mr. Solari, to you and Shane, are you comfortable with us saying we're fine with this and endorsing it as long as they get us a Mylar removing those lot lines, those former lot lines?
I'd have no issue.
Yeah, I had no issue endorsing based on corrective action. That's fine.
And Tony, you agree that those lot lines should be removed, correct?
I would take that language out because yes, it can be misleading. It does fall under the common ownership statute or section of the zoning act. So, but yeah, I think that could be misleading.
Well,
I mean, again,
I guess I don't want to be wrong. So to you and Mr. Solari, should those former lot lines be removed before we endorse it?
I don't think they have to be.
No, I think
I mean-
that can be corrected through a plan that you're gonna endorse anyways
No,
via your signature.
I agree with that, but I'm saying before we endorse it, should we remove those former lot lines? That's all.
I think as long as we're discussing that these lot lines aren't part of the A&R process, I think if we vote to endorse with the removal of that, then we're not considering them as part of this.
Right, but
We're
my
just
question-
considering
my
the
que- my
encroachment
question
parcel.
Is that the right thing to ask for, or is it the right way, the way it's presented?
No, it's fine the way that what we're asking for.
And Tony, you would agree with that? Remove those former lot lines? Before
I think
endorsing?
if it let's put it this way, if it would make the board feel more comfortable, then you could have a revised plan, take that off. I mean, the intent is obviously this is all common ownership. He owns all of it. And the intent of the plan, as noted, is just that he's going to get a 37 square foot parcel from Mr. Arrighi so that he's not encroaching on Mr. Arrighi's land anymore. And he's going to get an easement on both sides to access in the building for maintenance, because obviously he couldn't at this particular time as it stands today.
Okay. Any other discussion from the board?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's plainly obvious that nobody has an issue with the change here, but my only question is procedurally, can we vote to endorse a plan that is going to be different from the one we signed with an A&R?
Yeah, I guess with some caveats in terms of if you want certain language to be removed, as long as the intent of the A&R that's placed here is proper. I think that if it's the removal of the language, the lot numbers are correct, and then everything that they're referencing is proper in terms of what action the note's proper. In terms of the action that they're performing, I think that's okay. There's been times where we've asked for language to be stricken from an A&R because it doesn't comply with. I think there was a case where there was an A&R plan that was stating something about a zoning act on it, whereas it would go against the entire concept of what we do, because we're not the responsibility of the planning board for an A&R plan is not to endorse something based on zoning.
Well,
Mr. Chair, if I might add, a planning board can, if it feels that the plan needs, you have the ability to actually take a pen and strike out form a lot line and endorse it if you feel that plan could potentially be misleading. You're allowed to do that as a planning board if you feel that there's something that needs to be added or should be removed. So in essence, you do have the capability to just strike out form a lot line and still endorse the plan if you're comfortable with that.
yeah, and I just want to make sure that asking for those to be removed is the right thing to do. Like, what's the cleanest thing to do? Is it leaving them there or is it removing them? To me, I was very confused with them there. So I said, what are we looking at tonight? Is there a new lot line being proposed somewhere? So that's why I asked the question. If it's all one lot, why don't we just show it as one lot? Is that the best way to do it, or is it best to show the former lot lines? Those lot lines don't exist anymore, so why wouldn't we just strike them?
Yeah, I don't see an issue regarding that. They're not like, the intent of the plan is not those lot lines. So if they're stricken from the language of former lot lines is stricken from the plans, it doesn't affect the action that the board's taken through endorsement.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's a weird technicality that's just happened to pop up on this one.
It's like if there was a misspelling on it, not to the extent of that, but it's like, yeah, it's just striking something where the action of the board doesn't necessarily change.
So just so we're clear, the Mylar that we're gonna sign, we could potentially, we're gonna ask the applicant to remove those former lot lines, correct?
That's my understanding, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Frias, do you have a different opinion?
No, that's fine. We can get, we can get you we can get you a Mylar with that removed if that would make it more comfortable for the board. Versus, again, you have the ability, if you have the Mylar there, you have the ability to just take a pen and strike out former lot line and say, oh, we don't feel, we feel that would be potentially misleading to someone. If not, then we could just give you a new Mylar, removing that language. If you want to vote to approve it, but then we could just make sure, and you could state in your approval that, with the removal of the
Yeah.
term or language former lot line.
Those out, okay. All right, so do we have a motion to endorse this? If there's no more discussion from the board, or if there's more discussion from the board, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to endorse with the request that the former lot lines be removed
Prior to
from the
signing.
final. Yeah.
I'll
second that motion.
Mr. Haley? Any further discussion? Ms. Pagan?
I agree with the proposed motion. I myself was kind of concerned about these lines. I realize it's probably just a minor formality, but being a person who likes having her records be correct when she, has them on hand or has to access them, I echo the sentiment that the lot line should be removed and the plan should be given to us in a revised format as soon as possible after this vote is taken.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Haley. I'll take the roll. Ms. Pagan?
Yes.
Ms. Rojas?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Haley?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tony.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. All right, I'm back to the agenda, item 5. Mr. O'Brien, I know you provided us with an updated draft addressing some of the concerns we had at the last meeting. Do you want to pull that up?
Sure.
So item 5 is an accessory dwelling unit discussion. This is a discussion in regards to changes to section 1A and section 3 of MGL chapter 40A regarding accessory dwelling units and what currently is allowed within the zoning ordinance expanded living areas. We're looking to formalize draft changes to provide to the town council this evening. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. O'Brien.
All right, so since our last discussion, we did just add one item, but I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Because I'm hoping to be able to
Can you make
find
that
accounts.
Can you make that a little bit bigger, Shane?
Sure. I'll go, yeah, one page at a time, I guess. Nope. Yeah, I'll just do one page. So no changes too much in terms of 3.3.3. We would be adding accessory dwelling units as defined in these ordinances only for single family houses. We made that clear. There'd be no changes to accessory structures, but we would be creating a new category under special regulations for section 4.5 that would spell out these 6 requirements for accessory dwelling units. That would make reference to our general regulations, section 4.1, as well as our table of dimensional requirements. Because as we stated in previous meetings, it's important to us that each of these primary structures maintain their proper open space and setbacks as implied by those regions, as well as making sure that we're limiting one accessory dwelling unit per lot, and it should be limited to only single family dwellings.
Jane, can I ask you a question? I went through those 6 items and I asked you and Mr. Solari this last time. And I saw that East Bridgewater passed theirs and a number of towns are passing these now with site plan review. But you both feel that even if they're detached, that we should not require site plan review. Is that correct?
In my opinion, I don't think we need site plan review. I think that what we're changing about a couple pages in terms of changing our current expanded living space ordinance to accessory dwelling units. But just kind of based on the way that we've been operating as such right now, I think we internally have the capabilities of looking at these from not only just a planning perspective, I guess, but from a building, a board of health, and a pretty much a building board of health considerations for a lot of these projects. Because one of the things I wanted to make sure that we noted as part of this is making sure that Title V regulations are maintained and that someone doesn't take advantage of state building code as well as fire code for these matters for these accessory dwelling units.
So just thinking about some other towns and looking at other stuff, one other thought I had today. I mean, I don't think we want people putting in a second driveway, and we don't want people having a separate house number, correct? And we
No,
don't.
our bylaw, the town doesn't allow for a second driveway. You're allowed one driveway and that's it.
So, because it's still a single family home, correct?
Yeah, and house numbers, there's only one house number per lot. This just happened. Matter of fact, that in Plymouth, they're giving the second number like a U or something. It's very strange because I looked up Plymouth. They're doing like if your house was 50, the back would be 50U. So I guess towns are coming up with different ways of doing their accessory structures.
Mr. Solari, when you say we don't allow a second driveway, would it be possible for a single family home with an ADU to do like a bifurcated driveway where it splits off?
Well, when I said they're not allowed another driveway, basically they're not allowed to have another curb cut.
Right.
And the curb cut is
Right.
through the highway department.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So you guys are pretty happy with those 6 criteria?
I am, and I got to be honest with you, Pat, and I've talked to Shane about this. I think you're going to see a lot of these towns that pushed for site plan review. Once they go in front of the AG's office, I think they're coming back.
Okay.
I don't think, yeah.
All right. Sorry, go ahead, Shane. I'm sorry.
No, I completely agree with Steve. We've attended enough webinars and seminars on accessory dwelling units where even then we're not completely scared by it, I guess, based on kind of the success and kind of knowledge we have of it. But even then too, you look at other towns and cities' ordinances and they go from nothing to 6 pages and 7 pages. Whereas we're kind of just adding a couple things as part of this, and that was kind of our mindset in terms of keeping it simple, while not dissuading people from looking to do accessory dwelling units. We've had a lot. We're pretty much 80% of the way there. So we're just touching up that other 20% to make sure that we're done.
Yeah.
If it totally becomes something out of control in the future, then we'll definitely probably come before this board to implement some sort of site plan review. But I don't see that being an issue.
All right, great.
And is it fair to say, Mr. O'Brien, that nothing in this proposed ordinance would lead us to a legal review in the future? I'm assuming that's what your main objective was, is to avoid that.
Yeah, I like to avoid illegal stuff as much as I can. But in terms of what we're looking to produce here, we prevented ourselves from stating certain loopholes that people are trying to place into theirs. There's nothing that states that has to be owner occupied. We're not changing anything to make it more difficult. I think we're just trying to keep it as simple as possible. I think the biggest change we're getting out of this is just changing our definition to literally what the state definition of an accessory dwelling unit is. So, expanded living area is no more, and it just becomes accessory dwelling unit. And there's certain limitations that's spelled out by the statute, and we're tying it to we're actually changing our accessory use from 40% to 50% as to meet that criteria of half the gross floor area. per the definition, so.
So would it be accurate to state this is really just a revision to keep us in line with the state law?
Yeah, pretty much. And
Okay.
an opportunity to kind of touch up, some requirements of our setbacks.
So Shane, the one thing I saw on that setback, can you go down to that setback thing, or just,
Sure.
so footnote 3, you should probably reference above that, whatever because that's a footnote 3 to the dimensional table.
Yep. Well,
Well-
I have it under table. Oh, you're right. Dimensional table.
Right,
Okay.
so it should be dimensional table, and I think the dimensional table, I don't have it in front of me, what's that? Table of dimensional requirements?
Yep.
And whatever, the table has a number, I don't know what number that is.
It's under, I think it's 4243 or something.
Alright.
So
just
yeah, I
that-
can make reference to that.
That's the only thing I saw today, so.
Sure. But yeah, I guess if this board's comfortable, I'm not looking for a vote per se. But if the board wants to support this language, we'll look for a counselor and try to get this taken care of prior to the changes in February.
Can I just seek clarification on the address? How is that working?
We don't know yet. It's Mr. Solari's office will have to deal with it if he.
Yeah, I would say that they're gonna have to keep the same, the house number, but they're gonna have to find an alternative for.
Like the
You're
U.
gonna call it, rear, are you gonna call it,
Right.
B, unit A, unit B?
Well,
Because
so-
if you
well,
check,
how do you deal with it now? We don't. So if it's.
we
X-
don't, and I give the numbers for all the houses in town, so I deal with the postmaster, and the postmaster is only delivered to one address.
Right.
So it's going to be up to you to have almost like a 2-family. You're going to have 2 mailboxes, and you're going to have, maybe the name on the mailbox, because there's
Right.
no other way of really doing it.
Yeah,
So
there's no functional way for us, especially like from a permit perspective. If someone's coming in for a permit for that, they're coming from a permit for the owner's address, not the
address.
Yeah, I mean, I
Right.
can speak to the current existing conditions of that. It's just as Mr. Solari said, it's one address, and then, you just have to sort the mail a little bit right now. So,
All right. Do we have any feedback from Mr. O'Brien? Are we good to let him move this forward with the counselor? I mean, this is just a workshop. This could change with the council. It could change in our public hearing, but at this point, we're good with it.
yeah, I mean, it has my complete endorsement.
Endorsed from me as well.
Ms. Rojas, Ms. Pagon?
Oh, yep. I didn't know if I would be able to make a comment on this, Mr. Chairman. I would say, before I endorse, I actually appreciate the work that, Mr. O'Brien has done and the input that Mr. Solari's given us. I think keeping things simple does help us prevent those, legal pratfalls that could befall some of our, colleague communities with the amount of restrictions they may have put on with the site plan review. Recognizing that these are basically dwelling units that are on one property and going through those measures. Definitely the address part is probably something that might come up in further discussion with the council if we can get a counselor behind this. But as far as I'm concerned, the language is written, keeps it simple, keeps it concise, and allows us at least the flexibility to provide further guidance on these ADUs. And I know this is something that's a statewide change. So let's keep it simple. Let's keep it concise. I want to endorse this.
Okay, Ms. Pagon, Ms. Rojas?
I think I have the same sentiment as the rest of the team. And I'd like to endorse it.
Great. All right.
Cool, much appreciated.
Move forward, Mr. O'Brien. So
Sounds
thank
good.
And thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I know that you've been working on this for some time, so.
I know it's only 3 pages, but I think based on all the phone calls Steve and I have, well, especially Steve's gotten about accessory dwelling units, it seemed like at first we wanted to go through like massive changes and 10 pages of stuff like everyone else is doing. But when we really thought about it and talked about it, it was like keeping it simple was the best way for doing things.
Okay. All right, moving on, item 7. Do we have minutes for 8/21, Mr. O'Brien?
No, I'm grossly behind on minutes. I'm hoping to find some free time and get some minutes together for August as well as September. And then my goal is at least by the end of the year is to clean out, get you guys at least endorsing minutes up to November by the last meeting in December.
All right.
Mr. I apologize, Mr. Driscoll, for cutting you off. I remember back in the day, you know, we had a somebody who handled the minutes so the town staff didn't have to. Should we possibly evaluate reconsidering having that position?
Are you
again?
talking about was Les the one doing minutes last time?
Correct.
Before? Les was staff, so we don't have an
Oh.
administrative person anymore. So I kind of
I
we
understand.
do the minutes as well as, you know, rewatching the meetings and then doing the minutes. So so that's so
My
kind of
mistake there.
it's okay. It's all right. But yeah, I'll get through them as quick as I can and get some more minutes to you guys hopefully for the next meeting. I apologize once again.
All right, can you?
Could we have a volunteer do it if we so chose
We
to?
could, I guess that it would be there'd be financial implications about, there was actually a discussion on the mass planners page in terms of
Mhm.
how much people pay for minute takers, but it's not necessarily cheap.
There's Shane, there's a tool that I've told many like other people about. It's called Otter and it's a scribe. You can go back and you know it records all the screens and everything that was shared. It records the voice so that if you want to go back and listen to it again, you can and correct anything.
So if it does that through YouTube. So if I
Any meeting that you do, you
Okay.
just got to turn Otter on and it'll run for you. It'll write your notes, it'll record the audio, and you can play back. And
Cool.
it also takes screenshots for you.
All right, yeah, I'll check that software out. But yeah, that would be
And it's
very
probably
helpful.
cheaper than having a new staff member. So
Sure. Well, yeah, we'll fight always for more staff, but
All right,
but yeah, but absolutely.
12-4 meeting, 43R.
Bridgewater Preserve.
Yeah.
And I think there's rumors of another A&R popping in, but I think that's what we got so far.
Okay. Mr. Tanzi, Mr. Solari, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Rulli, any updates that you'd like to share, or you're good?
I'm good.
Shane, Steve, Bob?
No, I just wanted to note draft schedule too. I got some comments regarding October 1st is possibly being taken off the draft meeting schedule. So
Why don't we vote on that on the
next
12th
meeting in
rather than-
December.
Okay, and
So-
there's no staff or planner reports tonight?
No, nothing beyond that. Like I said, talking about the 2025 draft meeting schedule. I attended SNEPA a couple weeks ago in Springfield.
Did you say SNEPA, like NEPA with an S?
It's not MEPA. It is the Southern New England American Planning Association Conference. Next year's is actually gonna be in Newport. But this year's was in Springfield, so they're doing a lot of good things down over in Springfield. I know it's a different population subsect. But you know, there was a lot of good planning activities. There was talking about planning for parking and in different ways downtowns have been kind of utilizing different things. So we've been kind of, you know, talking about that internally, but it was a very good conference. I think it's been very beneficial, as well as I kind of sent some information over the board if anyone's interested in some CPTC trainings. We got some over in November, December into January. But that's what I have for planners reports now, Mr. Chair.
Well, at least we're sending you somewhere exotic next year.
Well, well, we'll see. Well, I wouldn't say I used to work in Newport, so I know I was more of I hung out more on Broadway than around Thames.
All right.
Viking.
Item 8, motion to adjourn, or does everybody wanna keep talking?
So moved.
Are we
So
good?
moved. Second.
The motion by Mr. McDonald, who seconded that?
Mr. Haley.
Yeah, Any discussion? I'll take the roll. Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Ms. Pagone,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Good night, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Take care.
Happy
See you soon.
Thanksgiving.